First, I want you to go over to your GitHub site, and once you get there, according to our assignment, let's go ahead and bring this up here. According to our assignment, you're going to create a repository called Grid Web Layout. So in GitHub, we'll create a new repository. We're going to call it Grid Web Layout. Make sure it's public and create the repository. You guys all with me? Okay. All right, so we have some setup details here for how to initialize your local repository. So first of all, I'm going to go to my terminal. And where am I at? Let me clear this out. I am in my directory, so I'm going to cd to the GitHub directory. All right, so the next thing we want to do, go ahead and open up your VS Code, and you're going to open a folder, and you're going to go to the Grid Web Layout. Okay. We have this directory here. So we're just going to click on this and say new file, and we're going to call this web page. If we go over here, we're going to call the web page Grid Web Layout HTML. The reasoning behind that is when we go to later push the content to your repository, your web hosting account, we don't want to overwrite any previous assignments you have in there. Okay, so call that your Grid Web Layout HTML, and we're going to use HTML5 using the IMID abbreviation, so we kind of get the basics put out there. We're going to create a new folder. We'll call this CSS, and in the folder a new file, and we're going to call that Grid Layout CSS. So new file, Grid Layout CSS. This is the same reasoning, right? We want to make sure that we keep everything intact. Okay, next, for your grid web layout, we're going to be using a grid layout, and we're going to be using a very basic example. Okay, so we're going to start this by creating a div, and we're going to give this a class name of grid-content. Okay, and inside of that we're going to create another div, and we'll call this one class item 1. And to simplify this, I'm just going to copy and paste this a couple of times, because we'll change the class names in a second. So we got item 1, item 2, item 3, item 4, item 5, item 6, item 7, item 8. Okay. For the first one, let's go ahead. If you remember, we had from last time we met, we created a website using a different layout, right? And let's go to that site, and I'm just going to copy my image folder and go back over here, GitHub, grid layout, and I'm going to paste that image folder in. Okay, and if we come over here, you'll see now you have CSS and you have images, and we got a couple of images in here. So we click on this. This is our image that we used. All right. Okay, so at this point, if we load the web page, let's see, reveal it in Finder, and open this in Chrome, there's nothing there, right? All right, so let's go back in here, just so we kind of keep things labeled. We're just going to put some numbers. We'll save that and refresh this, and we just basically, all we have now on the site is just numbers. So let's think about how do we get this to kind of show up a little bit better. Let's go to our CSS. Actually, first things first, we got to go over to the head section, and we need to create a link to a CSS, and our CSS is called Grid Layout CSS. Okay, so let's come over here now to our CSS, and we're going to basically look at the grid content, and I'm just going to set a background color to my grid content of Azure, whatever color that is. And we'll refresh this. Actually, let's inspect, make sure we don't have any errors. Grid Layout CSS1, so it can't find it. So let's go back to our web page, and that's because, right, it's in the CSS folder. So refresh that again. We have a little bit of a color change. Can you see that? It's not a lot. Let's highlight it a little bit darker. We'll change this from Azure to Let's use that. All right, so it shows up a little bit better. That's the background for it. Now, we want to set grid content div. I want to give it a different background color. Let's give it a, I don't know, a dark blue. Actually, what we need to do is we need to swap these. Let's do this. Put that in there. Put this one over here. And we're going to give a, let's see. Grid column. I need to look up my example here. Forgot to do this. Let's go back into our grid there, paste that in. Okay, and if we reload our page, nothing happens. So let's go back real quick here. Let's set the grid template columns to auto, and we got the background color and the padding. That's what I was looking for. Okay. Now, we already set our background color for the others. Let's set the padding and the text font size in this side. So we've got a little bit of a layout there now, right? Basically, our CSS, if we look at it, we're saying take anything underneath the grid content, all of the children, which are divs, and give them a padding of 20, a font size of 30, align the text to center, and set the background color to that, right? We've got the grid content overall set to grid, and we have the template columns to auto, and so forth. So if we go back and we look at this, we can kind of see where we want to be going with it, right? So let's play around with a couple other things here. Let's go to our border, and we're going to add a border radius to all of these of 15 pixels. Right? A couple other things that we could do. We really need the padding on this to be a little bit wider. So I think what we probably want to do, I'm going to set a margin of 10 pixels. Now think about your border box layout, right? Margins are the outside, padding is a little bit further inside, and then you actually have the border box on the inside. So if we refresh that, now we get a little bit more defined layout of our borders. And you can actually do some pretty crazy things here with your border radius. Say that you want the radius to be a little bit different size on the opposite corner. So let's say I'm going to make this 25 pixels here. Now you kind of get this shifted. You're telling it this one and this one do it this way, so you kind of get a, you know, a different flair to it, a different look and feel. All right. According to our homework assignment, though, we have to come up with this layout, right? So how are we going to come up with that layout? Well, with your grid system, I believe this is from last week and the week before, right? Y'all did the reading on it, right? Everyone nod your head, say yes. Okay. So you did the reading on it. With your grid system, you can specify like you would in Excel. Does anyone ever use Excel and you need to, you know, you're going to span a couple of columns, right? It's the same thing as Excel, or when you use an HTML table. Have we covered HTML tables in here yet? No? Oh. Well, kind of like an HTML table, okay? But let's talk about then the column, right? So this is one column, this is the second column, and this is a row, and this is a row. So this is a column group of 1 with a row span of 2. Make sense? This is a column group of 1 with a row span of 1. Same thing for this one. This one is a column group of 2 with a row span of 2. All right, column group of 2, row span of 1, you're right. You made it, and then I said the wrong thing, and you went, what? You say, yeah, I know. I goofed up. All right, so the way we do that, I'm going to pull up my my example, because I was working through this on W3 Schools earlier today. So you can see you have your columns like this, and then you have grid rows like that, okay? And you have column gaps, row gaps. And so let's redo some of what we did earlier. Let's set our column gap, instead of doing padding of 10, let's do this. See, whoops, cancel. Let's set it to 50 and see what happens. Okay. So now we have a column gap that's a little bit wider. That's kind of interesting. I don't know if I like that as much. I'm going to take it down to 10px though. All right, that works. And we can do the same thing down here. We can say, instead of a margin, we can say a row gap of 10px. Watch what happens. We've taken out the margin, so it kind of acts a little wonky, right? Let me put that back in there. Let's do row gap of 10px. Okay, so we have the same column and row gaps. All right, so let's figure out now how to actually apply this your columns, right? As you can see here, they're using an item 1, and they're giving a row start and a grid row end, right? If we look at our example, item 1 is going to be something similar. So what I want to do is I want to copy the column start and the column end for this one, and I want to apply this to, let's see, item 3, I think it is. No, I think maybe it's 4, item 4. Okay. Let's see what happens. Item 4 kind of shifted over a little bit. That's not quite what we were looking for, though. So let's see here. According to our website, we have let's see, where are you at? Let's go 4. All right, so now it's shifted it over the 4 columns, but I don't think this is the one that we really wanted to mess with, though, was it? Let's see here. Let's go on over to item 1, and we're going to give a grid row start of 1 and a grid row end of 2. Come back over, refresh. Yeah. So this is not giving us what we want exactly. We're going to kind of work through this together here. Let's, for right now, take that dude out just to validate that it will do. Grid start 1, 3. I'll put that back in for a second. All right, so it did expand this one just a little bit, right? But I think it's because 4 is not the one we want to apply this to. I think maybe we want to apply it to maybe 5. So let's do that. Yeah. That kind of helped, didn't it? So let's iteratively move on to the next one. Item 2, we want it to have a grid column start of 2 and a grid column end of 4. Let's see what it does. We're kind of getting closer to our design, right? So the key here is when you stretch this out, the sizing of these grids, they follow with whatever you have, right? And that's kind of ideal, right? Because if you're creating a website and you size it in and size it out, you want the content to be responsive, to flow. And so this kind of gives us that look and feel. Now, later on, we're going to get into what's called media queries. And with media queries, you can specify the viewport. And you can say, if the viewport, meaning this area over to the right, let me give you an example. I can specify a viewport now of 400, right? Or I can specify a larger viewport. There's a lot of different examples. With Chrome, I could do an iPad mini. I could do all different types of viewports. And these viewports are based on the width of the site. Okay? So when we use media queries later on, we can say if the viewport is 400, then we might have a completely different grid layout we would want to use. Right? You guys have all like pulled up on your phone a website and been totally annoyed because you have to like take your fingers and expand it and then go like this to move it over, right? It's because they don't have any media queries. They're all dealing with a viewport of the standard size that you would use for your laptop or that monitor that's in front of you. All right, that's coming up in the future, okay? Media queries. But for right now, we're using this idea that we can kind of size this and it'll flex to whatever we want. And in general, that makes sense because do you all have your web pages at different sizes? Do you sometimes expand them or contract them, right? Yeah. That makes sense to do that. All right, so again, let's go back and look at our design. We're getting closer. We have this, and we have this, and that. We know that the size dimensions of this right now are basically 3-column width, right? And if we go back and we look, I think we know why that is right there. Do you see it? So we could go and add another one and refresh this and everything changes, right? So now we need to readjust it, but it also gives us a little bit better control. So we could say our grid row start 1 to 3 with a grid column start of 1 and grid column end of 3. And if we refresh that, yeah, it kind of jumped it around a little bit. So let's do our grid column here of 3, grid column end of 4. Okay. It's getting closer. I think maybe 5. I think it's what we have to do. Yeah, there we go. So that's closer now. So let's go on to the next one, which was our item 3. And this is going to be pretty much the same as this one. So we'll just copy that, put that in there. We'll refresh it. Okay. It's looking good, right? We're getting closer to the requirement that we have here. So we have 5 doing this massive thing down here. I think it's really 4 that we want to mess with, right? So let's just change the item number to 4. And that's close, but it needs to go all the way out to column end of 5 to match our grid specification. You guys with me so far? You understand what I'm doing? Yeah? Okay. So when I refresh it now, I get that look and feel, and everything else at the bottom is extra. I can basically come back in here now and go to my columns, and I'm taking out 5, 6, and 7, right? So I'm just going to go in and I'll basically just delete those. Refresh it. All right, we're pretty close to the requirement. Now, if you look at what it asks of here, you got to put an unordered list of things that you would like to accomplish. So that's not too difficult to do. We can go to this list, and I'm going to say H1 things I want to, let's see, my bucket list. You all know what a bucket list is, right? It's the things you want to do before you kick the bucket. Right? It's a harsh way of putting it. All right, so I got a UL. I'm going to do an LI. Learn to fly a plane. LI. Learn to sell, not, you know, not give up my boat and sell it, but to sell my boat. Learn to sell a boat. Let's see. Travel. Let's see. Walk where Jesus walked. I want to go to the Holy Land someday and just kind of walk around, see those places. Let's see, what else? Climb the great pyramids. Actually, I don't think they'll let you even get on them anymore. I think too many people tried and they fell off the block and like broke arms and things. Let's see, what else? Walk down the Great Wall of China. Yeah, let's see. See Big Ben. I'm not talking about your brother Ben, okay? I'm talking about the clock in London. All right, anyways, we'll refresh that, and these are some of the things that you want to do, right? Okay. Let's see, what else is on that list? Write an interesting fact about you. Well, that will be here, interesting facts. So I'm going to do another let's do an H2 this time. Interesting facts about me. Do paragraph. I am related to both Daniel Boone and Abraham Lincoln. Let's see, what else? I love to write code and in Java and HTML. Come over here and refresh it. Okay. What else is on our list of things we need to do? Oops, wrong page. Share a favorite quote in this section. Oh, my favorite quote. Let's see. It's by Theodore Roosevelt. What is that? I can't spell. Yeah, stop it. What is it called? There's a quote by him. The Critic. Yeah, it's my favorite quote. You guys ever read this quote? I'll read it to you because this is a great quote, by the way. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust, sweat, and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes up short again and again and again and again and again, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows the end, the triumph of high achievement, and at worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly. The Critic. All right. So I'll throw that in my, let's see. I'm missing one, aren't I? Yeah, it's at the bottom. All right. So we'll come in here. H2 favorite quote, do a paragraph tag, and let's see. Okay. Oh, did I just close it? There it is. All right, favorite quote. And I'm missing one. What am I missing? Right here, what you think you will call your website for your final. H3 final project website. I have no stinking idea because I am the teacher, not the student. All right, there you go. Okay. So we've done a little bit there. All right, that's the grid system, right? Very easy. It's it kind of gives you a little flexibility on how you lay things out. So let's talk about styling the rest of this. We want to put some other things in. All right, I'm going to go back, and I've got all of this stuff in here. I'm going to create another div, and I'm going to call this class header. And in that, we're going to put some stuff, okay? Like we'll do a ul li home li about li whoops contacts li, I can't type, li favorite links. Okay, and if I refresh this, it's going to look kind of weird now, right? Because my grid system is off. So I got to come back up to the CSS. And what was this thing called? It was called header. So I'm going to come in here and type header. And we'll do a grid row start of 1, grid row end of 2, grid column start of 1, grid column end of, what is it, 5? All right, let's take a look and see what that does. Kind of works, but we got this weird overlap, right? Yeah. Things are getting weird. All right, so it means that we got to change the grid row from this to 2 and that to 4. And it probably means down here, this one, where are you at? Let's save it and see what happens. Yeah, that kind of works. So I've got that information there. In my header, we're going to do dot header nav. Now I haven't wrapped anything in a nav, have I? So let's create this and do float. Let's see, li float left margin. What are we going to do for the margin? Maybe 5 pixels in between. All right, so this is nav ul li. So we're just going to go ahead and create a nav, and I'll wrap that around the code here. format the document. Okay. Let's go back. Let's save it real quick so we can make sure everything's good. Yep, it's all good. Let's header nav ul li. Header nav ul li. Okay. Did I do it wrong? Did I just close it? Just closed it for some reason. Okay. There we go. So we're basically saying do that to all the children. And I think it's header nav ul list style none. There we go. Kind of works. Let's set this to 10 pixels. Give it a little bit wider berth. And to make this work, we're just going to throw in an anchor tag. Copy that and put that in there. So we kind of get the look and feel of a header, right? All right, now we talked a little bit about things that we need to do for images, backgrounds, and so forth. So for my header, I want to set a background image URL, and I have to specify it in the images directory. Let's see. Images. I forget that this is. There we go. Y'all know why I put the double dots in front of it? The CSS is in the CSS directory, so I have to go back up one level to access that. So I'm going to use the header like that, and I'm going to say background repeat, no repeat. We'll save that. We'll come back up and kind of look at this. There's our background image. It's not bad. And it hovers over our text. Now our text, it's kind of hard to see there, right? So let's let's see here. Let's do a couple other things first. Background clip, and I think it is content box. Nope, it's not content box. What is it? Border box? Yeah, border box. But it's not, clip is not giving it to us. So let's do background image, let's say size, and we want to cover it. So if we do it again, there we go. We wanted to fill that entire background area. And the nice thing about it is we still maintain those cool looking borders, right? So that works. All right, so that's one of the things that you can do with background images. You can apply them and set them in the background without having to come into the page and specifying an image. There's no image tag specified here, as you can see. It's all held in the background of the grid. Let's address a couple of things about the menu for a moment. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste. Let's bring this over so we can see a little bit better. Are you guys good so far? Is this helping any? Okay. So I'm going to copy that and paste that dude in there. We'll change that to about. And same thing again. We'll change this guy to contacts. Paste it in again. Favorite links. All right, so nothing's changed. All of that is still the way it is right there. So we want our nav and our UL and our LIs to be shifted down, but also we don't want the blue. Do you guys like links that are blue with this? No one really likes that, right? So let's think about trying to shift this text down to about right here, and let's give it a background color of black, right? I think that would set it off really good. And then we'll make the text itself white. What do y'all think? Yeah? All right. So we have our nav, and we want to, first of all, let's deal with the nav and set the header nav background color, and we'll just say black. Very basic. And that gives us something that doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Console, nope, all good there. Header nav background color. Did I save it? All right, well, let's take a look at what we got going on. Turn that off. And for our nav, says it's black. Header nav. What we got? Header and then nav. Well, I'm at a loss. I'm just going to go and do this for right now. We'll come back to that in a moment. Let's do header nav ul li a, and we're going to set the text decoration to none, and we do that. You can see we get rid of those underlines. We're going to set the color to white, and that sets that to that. And we really want our nav, we want that down a little bit. So let's see, I think it's trying to remember how to do this. Okay. Let's do header. It's a div class, so header. Let's call that menu so we're not confusing it. Header, menu. Actually, we don't have to do header there. We can just say menu. And we'll do position relative. And then menu nav position absolute top 0px format document. There we go. Ooh, bad news. What did I do? Let's see, menu. Height is auto. Okay. Yep, I took it out of view. So let's that's taking it too high. There we go. And let's do 40. All right, so that sets that. Do you all understand what we just did there? As long as it's highly recommended that you never use absolute positioning. The way you can use it is if the parent object has a relative positioning first. So the parent object of nav, cancel, parent object of nav is menu, and menu has a relative position with a static height. And so I've created a box that it exists in, and so now inside of that I can tell my other piece of navigation code to exist at this level, right? The other nice thing about it is I can also do this now. I can specify the left position, and if we look at it, it's right here, but let's say I want it to be over a little bit further. I could say left position of 100 pixels, and it shifts it over a little bit. So we could go ahead and do 120 pixels, and it's right there. I'm still not satisfied with its current position, so I'm going to change that to 145. It brings it down just a little bit. And I still have this kind of weird thing going on here. My background color for the menu is not set. So I'm going to try it again. Background color. I'm going to set it to black. Let's see if it picks it up. Oh, that's a goofball, isn't it? All right. So it did pick it up, but that's not exactly what we want. Let's take that out. That's a little bit better. I'm not satisfied with how that is, though, because that kind of, it occludes a lot of what we have. So for right now, I'm just going to take this out. We're running out of time, so I don't want to spend all the time trying to fuss over that location. We're going to change this to yellow. Okay, stands out a little bit, but one of the things that we could do, even if it is white, and this is in your textbooks, you can add a background like blur or a drop shadow. So this is kind of cool. You can do text, shadow, and let's do RGB. I'm going to do 51, 51, 51, and I'm going to do 10px for the, I believe this is the x axis, and 10px for the y axis. And then the blur quality, I think, is that. Let's take a look. There we go. Y'all see the little bit of the blur that shows up behind it now? Let's change the blur to a 5. Make it a tighter. Now you can actually see it looks, you actually can see the drop shadow of the text. So right now that's probably a little too low. Let's take that to 8. And maybe bring this to 8 for the offset. Still a little too low, maybe 5. And I'm going to bring that guy back up to 10. So now there's a little bit of a drop shadow behind it. Can you all see it okay? Yeah. We can change the colors here pretty easily within Visual Studio Code, and get a little bit better shadowing, right? The other nice thing that you can do is you can specify this again. So you can have the same code but a different offset location for the shadow. So say I want this one to be let's see, 2 and 5. Did I mess it up? Oh, there's a comma there. Okay. There you go. So now I have 2 shadows, one set at this location, another set at that location. And it really causes those to stand out a little bit. So those are your text shadows. So let's change up a few things though about our site. Let's add a drop shadow to this whole section here, right? Let's add a drop shadow to the top image. Now, that top image is what? That is in our header, I believe. Yeah, so there's our header. There's the drop, there's the menu on it. So let's do a let's see, is it box shadow? There it is. And same idea again. I'm going to copy just this piece of code here. And now we have a little bit of a box shadow around our top box. And you could change that to any number of colors you want. You could lighten that shadow up a little bit, maybe do 51. 51. By the way, this is just a gray, is all that does. And if you wanted to specify it as a gray, you could. So that's the shadow that is now on that box. Let's just change it back though, so it's a little better visible. All right. Let's talk about though making our site a little bit more narrow, right? And let's say that we want a background image across the entire site on the columns, the center of it brought in. So how would we do that? What did we do before to kind of get those on the other side? Do you all remember? Y'all have done a brain dump since then, right? Yeah. All right. So let me pull up the code we had in there before, and we'll open this up. Did it open it? I'm in the grid web layout. I already got it open. Let's open this one. There we go. Some of the things that we didn't do, you remember these? Those are a good idea to add to it. Where am I looking for it at though? I don't think it's there. Let's see. CSS Center a web page. Where are you at? There it is. So go to our grid layout, and if we look at our overall, our master is the body, so we want to, we're just going to use the body for this. And I don't want 500. I think 500 is too small. I think it was 946 before. Is that what it was? There. So now we've kind of centered it a little bit. We may have to do a little work on this background image there. But now we've centered the site, gave it some borders. Let's apply a background image to the entire body. And to make this easier, I need an image. So I'm just going to go out and snag an image real quick. Let's see. Archaeology. I cannot spell. I'll let Google correct it for me. All right. I like this image here. So I'm going to, let's see. Save the image. I'm going to put it in my project, grid layout, images, and this is sphinx.jpg. Okay. So for my background, I'm going to say background image, or background image, and I'm going to specify URL, and I use the quotes / images sphinx, and then I'm going to do a save on that. Let's just go back to our site, and we're going to see what happens. All right, so there's the image. It's a little large, isn't it? Let's see. Background, repeat, and we want this to be yes, repeat. Size of the image is a little too much. Let's pull up the style guide for images. So CSS background image. Let's see, there's we can set that. We can set the color. Tell you what, I'm going to see if I can grab a smaller image. Sphinx. Let's see, all sizes, small. Yeah, perfect. This one's nice, just the right size for us. All right, so we're going to save that, and I'm going to call it Sphinx2.jpg. All right, if we're looking at our code, and we come back in here and refresh this now. Now we have that image. We have all of the sphinxes in the background. And that's kind of like what we want, but there's some other cool things we can do with the background. Like, for example, say we want the background image to stay static, right? The way you do that, and you're going to find this in your code this week, is we can set the background attachment to fixed, and then when we refresh it, now only the background images stays the same. Okay. All right. Let's take a quick look here. What have we not covered? Some of this: bitmaps, vector images, scalable vector graphics, GIFs, JPEGs, and PNGs. Before we go any further, how many of you have downloaded or already have a favorite image editing software? A couple of you do. I found one today. It works on both Mac and Windows. I think it has a free period you could use. Let me see if I can just pull it up real quick. Best free image editing software. Yeah. I think this is the one here. It is Photo Director. Photo Director is a great image editing software you can download, and they've got plenty of tutorials for you, how to use it, and so forth. GIMP is absolutely free, open source. There is no trial period on it. Once you download it and you can use it, you can do just about everything you can imagine that you could even do in Photoshop. Okay, GIMP is pretty good. Another one is Pixlr, and it's just an online editing. I recommend, as web developers, you find a tool that you can use for editing images, because you're going to want to be able to spoof up your site and resize images and do some things, and you're going to need some image editing software to do that. Okay. Now back to the topic of image editing software, or image editing in general. We have a lot of different types of images that you can use. You can use vector graphics, vector images, and the most common vector image that the standard is scalable vector graphics, SVG. SVG is XML. Are you all familiar with XML? Okay, so XML is a lot like HTML. It has built-in child objects and so forth. And with a scalable vector graphic, basically the size of the image will scale to whatever you have, and there is no cost overhead as long as you're not utilizing some other image source in the background. Another one is Bitmap. Bitmap is has been around forever. If you're using Windows and you're using Microsoft Paint, you're pretty much going to be saving things as bitmaps, right? The Gif format. The Gif format allows you to create, GIFs, little animations. And sometimes those are useful on your websites when you just want to have a video image that just kind of loops. But GIFs are very low quality, and you want to make sure that the size of the GIF you're using is appropriate to the image quality that you're after. Okay, it's not the best. JPEG is really going to be the image format that you need to use for your websites. Does anyone here do photography? Anyone ever use a nice Sony camera or Canon or whatever and taking some pictures? Okay, when you take those pictures, right, the image quality that comes off that image is like so many thousands and thousands of pixels. And they're incredible images. They're great for when you need to do some editing and wipe out blemishes or really get great quality. But it's nonsense to use those types of images on your websites. Now, I want you to think about this. Have you ever been to a site and you go to load it and it just spins? And then finally, a few images will start to slowly appear on the screen. And how do you feel about it? Huh? Annoyed, right? And what is your first instinct when the page does not load within 3 to 4 seconds? You go somewhere else. When you're creating your page, okay, it's very tempting to want to put the best graphics on it, make it look as beautiful as you can. But if you use PNGs all over the place and really high quality bitmaps, then you're going to drive your users crazy because it'll take forever to load the page. You want to try to get all of your images converted down to JPEGs for your websites, okay? JPEGs, they use an encryption algorithm that compresses the image so that if you look at an image, you'll see like the first 5 pixels are all the same color, and so what it does is it actually does a calculation across the image and maps out everything and says, okay, here's the algorithm that maps out everywhere where the same color is used, or here is, and so forth. It encrypts it, makes it smaller. The thing about JPEGs is you can't do transparent backgrounds, and sometimes you may want to have a transparent background. That's where you would either use a GIF or a PNG for your images. Try to be very sparing on the number of PNGs that you use though, okay? All right, that kind of wraps that up. You said you had to leave early to, okay. Yeah, feel free whenever you got to go.
Just waiting, because it seemed like you were, wrapping up.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. We've done a little bit with borders. We've done drop shadows, gradients, or some other cool things. All of these you're going to see in your reading this week. Your homework assignment, which I've been working through, you should be able to have a good handle on how to do it now, right? Okay. As we close up today, just make sure that you pay attention to some things like this. You need to apply a background image to the body tag, right? And you need to use an opacity setting with it. And we didn't really cover that yet, so make sure you research on how to apply an opacity setting to the background image. Make sure that all your grids are the right sizes and everything fits right. You want to make sure that the font, okay, font family, try to use a sans serif type font like like that. We'll refresh it so you can see. Right? You could use one of those, or let's see, what's another one? Let's do that one. Right? Make sure you apply drop shadows to each of the grid boxes. Make sure you use text shadows in appropriate places. Okay. Yeah. And finally, make sure that you commit your code back to GitHub. Because when you turn in the assignment, you're turning in two links. You're turning in the link to GitHub and the link to your web hosting site. Okay, because I want to be able to click on each and see the content you created. Okay? Any questions? One of the things that you can do is you can also apply a background image and color over it and set the opacity of the color to affect the overall look and feel of it. Sound good? All right. Any other questions? All right. If you don't have any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and release you guys, and I'll be here to answer any questions you may have in private. Cheers.